In 1977, friends Frank Navetta and David Nolte began writing songs on acoustic guitars with the intention of forming a band. They initially called themselves The Itch until Navetta came up with the name Descendents. By the end of the year, they had failed to attract any more band members, so Nolte left to join the last with his brothers. In late 1978, Navetta joined by drummer Bill Stevenson, and with Nolte switching from guitar to bass, revitalized the Descendents project. Nolte sang with the group at several of their early performances, but by the spring of 1979 the last were becoming more active and he left the Descendents again, being replaced by bassist Tony Lombardo. The singerless power trio lineup of Navetta, Lombardo, and Stevenson recorded the band's debut single at Media Art Studios and released it on their own label Orca Records, named after Stevenson's fishing boat. Navetta sang Ride the Wild while Lombardo sang It's a Hectic World. Nolte produced and mixed the session and his brother Joe turned the lead guitar level up, resulting in the guitar being very loud in the mix. The band's music at the time was described by Stevenson as a coffeed-out blend of rock, surf, pop, punk music. The sound consisted basically of Lombardo's hard-driving, melodic bass lines, Navetta's tight guitar riffing, and my caffinated surf beats. Stephen Blush, author of American Hardcore: A Tribal History, describes the single as a blend of Devo-style new wave and Dick Dale-like surf. Ned Raggett of AllMusic describes it as surf-inspired power pop with a new wave edge, not quite Devo if they grew up on the coast, but there's something to that comparison. After a 6-month trial with a female singer, Cecilia Laura, they recruited Milo Aukerman as their new vocalist. The addition of Aukerman and the consumption of large amounts of coffee led the band to write shorter, faster and more aggressive songs in a hardcore punk style. They later released the Fat EP in 1982. It was a record which established the band's presence in the Southern California hardcore punk movement with its short, fast, aggressive songs. For the recording of their first album in June 1982, the band worked at Total Access Recording in Redondo Beach, California with Spot, who had also engineered and produced the Fat EP. While still short and fast, the songs on Milo Goes to College were also melodic. Aukerman later reflected, "It's interesting, we started very melodic, then moved to hardcore, but melded the two at a certain point and became melodic hardcore." The album's title and cover illustration referenced Aukerman's departure from the band to study biology at the University of California, San Diego. The illustration was done by Jeff Atkinson, based on earlier caricatures by a high school classmate of Aukerman's named Roger Doreline, who had drawn comic strips and posters depicting Aukerman as the class nerd. The band continued performing for a time with Ray Cooper on vocals, who would switch to rhythm guitar when Aukerman made return visits to Los Angeles. At the same time, Stevenson had also joined Black Flag, intending to be in both bands at once, but soon finding it too difficult due to Black Flag's touring and recording schedule. With Aukerman in college and Stevenson in Black Flag, the Descendents went on hiatus from 1983 to 1985. During this time, Navetta burned all of his equipment and moved to Oregon, while Cooper and Lombardo performed as the Ascendants. In 1985, Stevenson left Black Flag and Aukerman, Cooper, and Lombardo reconvened as the Descendents for I Don't Want to Grow Up, recorded that April at Music Lab Studios in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California with producer and engineer David Tarling, and published by New Alliance Records. Lombardo was unable to tour with the band due to his job with the United States Postal Service, and was replaced by Doug Carrion, who performed on their 3 tours in support of I Don't Want to Grow Up. After 3 tours in support of I Don't Want to Grow Up, the band recorded Enjoy in March and April 1986 at Radio Tokyo Studios in Venice, California. Drummer Bill Stevenson acted as producer of the album, working with recording engineers Richard Andrews and Ethan James. The lyrics of Hot and Crude derived from a high school classmate of singer Milo Aukerman, who had earned a score of 1420 on the SAT, gaining him entry into the United States Military Academy. Gloating about his accomplishment, he sang a taunt with the lyrics, "I am better than you, you are a piece of poo 1420. Aukerman incorporated these lyrics into Hot and Crude. The cover artwork for Enjoy was drawn by guitarist Ray Cooper under the pseudonym Scoob Drulins. Rather than printing the song titles on the reverse of the album's sleeve, The band instead replaced them with various euphemisms for Feces. The band supported Enjoy with a tour through the summer of 1986. Following the tour, both Carrion and Cooper left the band, and were replaced by Carl Alvarez and Stephen Edgerton, respectively, from the Utah band Massacre Guys. In 1987, New Alliance was sold to SST Records, who re-released Enjoy on cassette and compact disc. The cassette and CD versions added 2 additional tracks, Orgofart and Argo 51. Orgofart consists entirely of the band members cheering each other on as they fart into recording equipment, a technique also used in Enjoy, while Argo 51 is a heavy metal-influenced instrumental track. 1 week later, on Stevenson's birthday of September 10, Stephen Edgerton and Carl Alvarez moved from Salt Lake City to fill the vacant guitar and bass positions. All was recorded in January 1987 at Radio Tokyo Studios in Venice, California, with recording engineer Richard Andrews, and was produced by Stevenson. Des Cadena sang backing vocals, while Stevenson created the album's cover graphics and Alvarez provided illustrations for the sleeve and liner notes. The album was themed around the concept of all, which had been invented by Stevenson and friend Pat McQuistion during a fishing trip on Stevenson's boat Orca in 1980. According to singer Milo Ackerman, while drinking all this coffee in the midst of catching mackerel, they came up with the concept of all doing the utmost, achieving the utmost. The more they got into it, the more it turned into their own religion. It's partly humor, but it's also an outlook on how to conduct your life, to not settle for some, to always go for all. Stevenson described the concept of all as the total extent, and he and McQuistion had quickly written several short songs that would later be recorded by the Descendents, including All and No All, written in a fit of allular frustration. The songs were only seconds long, but that was all the time we needed to make the point. McQuistion also shared writing credit on All Logistics, a musical set of commandments for achieving all, including lyrics such as "Thou shalt not commit adulthood," "Thou shalt not partake of decoff," and "Thou shalt not suppress flatulence." On December 1987, during the recording of the first All album, Allroy says, Pat McQuistion died when his fishing boat sank during a storm. Stevenson remarked that he had 15,000 pounds of fish on board, so I guess you could say he died in heated pursuit of all. He was always the 5th member of the band, besides being my best friend next to Milo. With Smalley and later singers Scott Reynolds and Chad Price, All released 8 albums between 1988 and 1995, with Ackerman contributing occasional songwriting and backing vocals. Everything Sucks was recorded in June and July 1996 at the Blasting Room, a studio built and run by Stevenson in Fort Collins, Colorado. Original Descendents members Tony Lombardo and Frank Navetta made appearances on the album. Navetta wrote the song Doghouse, and both he and Lombardo played on it, marking the first recording by the original Descendents lineup of Ackerman, Lombardo, Navetta, and Stevenson since Milo Goes to College in 1982. Lombardo also played on Eunuch Boy, a song he and Ackerman had written 15 years earlier. According to Ackerman, Eunuch Boy is the first song I ever wrote, really. When we formed, Tony Lombardo, the original bass player, said, "Dude, you need to write some songs," and I had never written a song before, so I just wrote down some words and brought it to him. He made the music for it. Lombardo also wrote and played on Gotta, which was left off of the album but released as a B-side on the When I Get Old single. Chad Price sang backing vocals on the album, while Stevenson and Edgerton produced and engineered it. In the early 2000s, Ackerman took a break from biochemistry and reunited with the Descendents to record a new album. The recording sessions for Cool to Be You took place with Ackerman in February 2002 at the Blasting Room in Fort Collins, Colorado, with additional recording done in April at Planet of Sound in Wilmington, Delaware, and were produced by Stevenson. The band recorded the music for the songs live in the studio with minimal overdubbing, and Ackerman's vocals were recorded over the instrumental tracks. However, these recordings were not released for another 2 years. Stevenson explained that the gap of 8 years between Descendents albums was due to the band members having children and to his father's death. In October 2008, founding member Frank Navetta died after becoming ill over the course of a few days. The official website of the Descendents gave its grief to Frank. "We're very sorry to announce that founding member of the Descendents, and close friend Frank Navetta died on October 2008 after becoming ill over the course of a few days. This is obviously a huge loss for the Descendents family. His contribution to the band and to music in general cannot be overstated. Frank will be truly missed. In 2010, the Descendents reunited again for a series of gigs. According to Milo, the reunion is not an official reformation. He classified these as one-off shows usually occurring when he is able to take advantage of vacation breaks as working as a biologist to perform with the Descendents. In May 2015, it was announced by Stevenson that the band had been working on some demo songs for a new album which could possibly be released mid-2016. On April 2016, it was announced that the band's next album, Hypercaphium, along with an accompanying EP with 5 bonus tracks from the recording sessions entitled Spazhazard, would be released through Epitaph in July. On June, the debut single from Hypercaphium, Victim of Me, was released on all streaming services. In July 2016, Milo announced he would be leaving his scientific career to pursue the Descendents full-time, citing burnout with biochemistry and getting laid off from DuPont. In April 2017, the band released a standalone single titled Who We Are, a highly political song that laments the presidency of Donald Trump and repudiates the bigotry, violence, and divisiveness that the band feels he has caused.